The invitation that changed everything? Julian Hartwell stared at the cream-colored envelope on his mahogany desk. His jaw clenched tight. The gold lettering mocked him with every elegant curve. Rebecca Walsh and Preston Blackwood, request your presence at their union. He picked up the invitation and read it again, as if the words might somehow rearrange themselves into something less painful. She actually sent me an invitation, he muttered, tossing the card aside. After everything, his assistant knocked softly before entering. Mr. Hartwell, your 3 o'clock is here. Cancel it, Julian said, grabbing his coat. I need some air. 20 minutes later, he found himself in a neighborhood far from his penthouse apartment. Sitting in a vinyl booth at Ruby's Diner, the place smelled like coffee and bacon, and the worn linoleum floors told stories of decades of service. It was exactly the kind of place where nobody knew his name or cared about his net worth. A chance encounter, what can I get you? Asked a voice that carried both warmth and weariness. Julian looked up to see a woman in her late 20s, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Hazel eyes that seemed to see right through his expensive suit to whatever was bothering him underneath. Coffee. Black, he said. Rough day? She asked, pulling out her order pad. Rough month, actually. Well, coffee's a start, but if you want my unsolicited opinion, you look like you need our apple pie too. It won't solve your problems, but it might make them taste better. Despite himself, Julian almost smiled. Fine pie too. When she returned with his order, her name tag read Naomi. She set down the coffee and pie, then surprised him by sliding into the seat across from him. My break just started, she explained. You looked like you could use some company, or at least a distraction. That obvious? I've been serving people for 6 years. You learn to read faces. She took a sip from her own coffee cup. So, what's eating at you? Job? Family? Love. Julian found himself opening up to this stranger in ways he never would have with his social circle. My ex-fiancée is getting married. To my former business partner, actually. They're having this massive wedding at the Grandview Estate, and she had the nerve to send me an invitation. Naomi whistled low. That's cold. Are you going to go? I have to. If I don't show up, everyone will think I'm still heartbroken, that I can't face her. Are you still heartbroken? Julian considered the question. No, I'm angry. She didn't just leave me. She told everyone I was too focused on work, too emotionally unavailable. Made me look like the villain when she was the one having an affair behind my back. Naomi nodded thoughtfully. So you want to go to prove you've moved on? Exactly. But showing up alone defeats the purpose. What about bringing a date? Someone who makes her realize what she lost. Julian laughed bitterly. Everyone in my circle knows I've been single since the breakup. Any woman I brought would obviously be hired or desperate for my money. An unconventional proposal. Naomi studied him for a long moment, then said something that surprised them both. What if you brought someone completely unexpected? Someone who doesn't fit into your world at all? What do you mean? I mean someone like me, a diner waitress. Someone so far removed from your usual crowd that it would be impossible to fake. Julian stared at her, his mind racing. Are you offering? Maybe. Naomi leaned back, arms crossed. But if I did, I'd need something in return. Something real. Name it. Her expression shifted, vulnerability replacing the casual confidence. My little brother Danny, he's 16. He has a heart condition that requires surgery, the kind that insurance barely covers. I've been working double shifts for 2 years, saving every penny, but I'm still short about $40,000. Julian didn't hesitate. I'll pay for it. The entire surgery, all medical costs, and enough extra to cover his recovery period. Naomi's eyes widened. Just like that? You don't even know me. I know you care enough about your brother to work yourself to exhaustion. I know you're direct and honest. And I know you're exactly what I need for this wedding. He extended his hand. One night. You come with me, act like we're together, and I handle your brother's medical bills. Deal. She looked at his hand for a long moment before shaking it. Deal. But I have conditions. Go ahead. First, nothing inappropriate. This is strictly business. Second, you pay for the surgery up front, before the wedding. I need to know you're serious. Third, if anyone asks, we tell them the truth about how we met. I won't lie about who I am. Julian found himself respecting her even more. Agreed on all counts. The wedding is in 3 weeks. We'll need to spend some time together beforehand. Make it convincing. Preparing for the performance over the next 2 weeks, Julian and Naomi met regularly. He kept his promise immediately, transferring the funds for Danny's surgery the very next day. The operation was scheduled and successful, leaving Naomi both grateful and slightly overwhelmed by this stranger's generosity. You really didn't have to do this so fast, she said during one of their practice dinners at a quiet restaurant. I would have trusted you. I don't make promises I can't keep, Julian replied. Besides, your brother's health shouldn't wait on my social agenda. They created a backstory. They'd met at Ruby's diner 4 months ago, started talking, and discovered an unexpected connection. It was close enough to the truth to be believable.
Oh.
What should I wear? Naomi asked one evening as they reviewed their story. I'll have my stylist send over some options. Nothing too flashy. You should look like yourself. Just elevated. I don't want to look like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. You won't trust me. When the dress options arrived at Naomi's modest apartment, she chose a deep emerald gown that was elegant without being ostentatious. Simple lines, sophisticated cut, nothing that screamed trying too hard. The night before the wedding, Naomi called Julian. I'm nervous. What if I say something wrong? What if I use the wrong fork? Naomi, that's exactly why this works. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just being yourself. That's what will make Rebecca and everyone else question their assumptions. And if they're rude to me, then I'll handle it. But I have a feeling you can handle yourself just fine. The morning of the wedding day arrived, with perfect weather. Julian picked up Naomi in his car, taking a moment to appreciate how stunning she looked. The emerald dress brought out the gold in her hazel eyes, and she'd left her hair down in soft waves instead of her usual ponytail. You look beautiful, he said honestly. You clean up pretty well yourself, she replied, smoothing down her dress nervously. So, ready to make your ex regret her life choices? Julian smiled, ready to show everyone that real trumps fake every time. As they drove toward the Grandview estate, Naomi grew quieter. Julian, thank you. Not just for Danny's surgery, but for treating me like an equal in all this. A lot of guys in your position would have just hired someone and expected them to play a part. You're doing me a favor? Naomi, the least I can do is respect you while you're doing it. They pulled up to the estate, where valets waited and guests in designer outfits streamed toward the entrance. Naomi took a deep breath. Here we go, she said. Julian came around and opened her door, offering his hand. Here we go. As they walked toward the entrance, heads began to turn. Julian Hartwell had arrived, and he wasn't alone. But the woman on his arm wasn't anyone from their social circle. She was someone entirely new, someone unexpected. And as they stepped through those doors together, both of them knew that nothing about this arrangement would go according to plan. The wedding of the year was about to get very interesting. Entering the Lion's Den, the Grandview estate was everything Julian remembered and more. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. White roses adorned every surface, and guests draped in designer labels milled about with champagne flutes in hand. As Julian and Naomi entered the main hall, conversations faltered and heads turned. Is that Julian Hartwell? Someone whispered, Who's the woman with him? Julian felt Naomi's hand tighten slightly on his arm. He leaned close and whispered, You're doing great. Just breathe. Made their way through the crowd, toward their assigned seats. Julian recognized faces from his past life with Rebecca, business associates, country club friends, people who had witnessed his relationship crumble and chosen sides. Most had chosen hers. Julian Darling, cooed Patricia Hammond, one of Rebecca's closest friends. She air-kissed near his cheeks before turning calculating eyes on Naomi. And who is this charming creature? Patricia, this is Naomi Brooks. Naomi, Patricia is an old acquaintance. How lovely, Patricia said, her tone suggesting otherwise. And how did you two meet? Naomi smiled warmly. At Ruby's diner on 5th Street, I was serving coffee. He looked like he needed more than caffeine, and somehow we just started talking. Patricia's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. A diner. How quaint. And what do you do, Naomi? I'm a waitress. Well, I was working toward opening my own community center for underprivileged kids, but life had other plans. Naomi's honesty was disarming. Sometimes you have to take detours before you reach your destination. Julian watched Patricia struggle to respond. She'd clearly expected embarrassment or pretension, not genuine warmth and self-awareness. The ceremony begins. They took their seats as the ceremony began. The venue was breathtaking. An outdoor garden with white fabric billowing in the breeze and a flower-covered archway framing the altar. Julian steeled himself as the wedding march played. Rebecca appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in a custom wedding gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. Preston Blackwood waited at the altar, looking smug in his tuxedo. Julian felt Naomi's eyes on him. You okay? She whispered, Yeah, it's strange. I thought this would hurt more. Maybe you're more over it than you realized. As the ceremony progressed, Julian found his attention drifting from the vows to the woman beside him. Naomi watched with genuine interest, occasionally leaning close to whisper. Observations that made him smile despite himself. Bridesmaids. Dress makes her look like an angry cupcake, she murmured during a reading. Julian had to cover his mouth to keep from laughing out loud, earning them a few disapproving glances. When Rebecca and Preston exchanged rings, Julian felt nothing but relief. The woman at the altar was a stranger now, someone from another life. The woman beside him, however, felt surprisingly real. The reception tensions, the reception hall glittered with excess. Ice sculptures, a 12-tier cake, a live orchestra. Julian guided Naomi to their table, which unfortunately placed them within clear view of the head table where Rebecca and Preston held court. This is incredible, Naomi said, looking around, but also kind of sad. All this money spent on one day? That's Rebecca for you. Appearances are everything. Dinner was served course after elaborate course. Naomi handled the multiple forks with quiet observation, following Julian's lead without making it obvious. Across the table, George Pemberton, another business associate, engaged them in conversation.
Oh.
So, Julian, back in the game, I see. How long have you two been together? For months, Julian replied smoothly. Best for months I've had in years. George turned to Naomi. And you're comfortable with Julian's lifestyle? The travel, the long hours. Naomi set down her fork and met his gaze directly. I think what matters is whether two people value each other, not how many hours they log at an office. Julian's shown me more genuine care in 4 months than some people show in 4 years. The table fell silent. George looked taken aback by her directness. But Julian felt a swell of pride. Rebecca's approach as dessert was being served. Rebecca herself appeared at their table. She looked flawless, but Julian noticed the tightness around her eyes, the way her smile didn't quite reach them. Julian, I'm so glad you came, she said, her voice carrying across nearby tables. It means so much that we can still be friends. Congratulations, Rebecca. You look beautiful. Her eyes shifted to Naomi. And you must be his date. How wonderful. I'm Rebecca. Naomi, congratulations on your wedding. The ceremony was lovely. Rebecca's smile became slightly fixed. Thank you. Julian and I were together for 3 years, you know? It's nice to see him finally moving on. The implication was clear. With someone far beneath his usual standards. Naomi didn't rise to the bait. 3 years is a long time. You must have many memories together. I hope they serve you well in your new marriage. The subtle redirect caught Rebecca off guard. Before she could respond, Naomi continued. I've learned that sometimes the relationships that don't work out teach us the most about what we really need. Julian's taught me that in just 4 months. Julian watched Rebecca's composure crack slightly. She'd expected either deference or cattiness, not this calm. Genuine warmth that made her own behavior look petty by comparison. "Well, enjoy the evening," Rebecca said tightly before retreating to her table. Julian squeezed Naomi's hand under the table. "That was brilliant. I just told the truth." "Is that unusual in your world?" "More than you'd think." The dance floor revelation. When the dancing began, Julian led Naomi to the floor. She moved with natural grace, not formally trained, but comfortable in her own body. "I should warn you, I'm not exactly ballroom qualified," she said, as they swayed to the music. "You're doing perfectly." They danced in comfortable silence for a moment before Naomi spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything?" "Why did you really agree to pay for Danny's surgery? $40,000 is a lot of money, even for you. You could have found someone else to bring to this wedding." Julian considered his answer carefully. "When you talked about your brother, I saw something I recognized. Desperation mixed with determination. My mother worked 3 jobs to put me through college. She never asked for help, just kept pushing forward. When she got sick, I was making good money by then, but she'd already done the damage to her health. I couldn't save her, but I could help your brother." Naomi's eyes glistened. "I'm sorry about your mother. It was 10 years ago. But yeah, I still miss her every day. She would have liked you." "How do you know?" "Because she valued authenticity above everything else. She used to say that rich people spend their lives trying to look important, while poor people spend their lives doing important things." Naomi laughed softly. "She sounds wise." As the song ended, Preston Blackwood appeared beside them. "Mind if I cut in?" he asked, his tone making it clear it wasn't really a question. Julian tensed, but Naomi touched his arm gently. "It's fine. Go get us some drinks." As Julian walked away, he glanced back to see Preston leading Naomi in a dance, speaking close to her ear. His jaw clenched. "The confrontation so you're Julian's rebound," Preston said, his smile not matching his words. "Cute tactic. Bring the help to make Rebecca jealous." Naomi looked at him steadily. "I'm nobody's tactic. And from what I understand, you're nobody's prize either. Just someone who stole another man's fiancée." Preston's smile faltered. "Rebecca left Julian because he's incapable of real emotion. All business, no heart. Funny, because the man who paid for my brother's life-saving surgery without knowing me, who visits sick kids at the hospital on weekends, and who just danced with me like I was the only person in this room, seems pretty capable of emotion to me." Naomi stepped back. "Enjoy your marriage, Preston. Something tells me you're going to need all the luck you can get." She walked away, leaving Preston standing alone on the dance floor. Julian met her halfway with 2 glasses of champagne. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing worth repeating." "Can we get some air?" They stepped out onto a terrace overlooking the manicured gardens. The music drifted out behind them, softer now, less intrusive. "I'm sorry," Julian said. "I shouldn't have brought you into this mess. Are you kidding? This has been fascinating. Like watching a nature documentary about rich people in their natural habitat." She grinned. "Besides, your ex-fiancée looks miserable, which I assume was part of the goal. Is it terrible that I'm enjoying that? It's human. But Julian, can I tell you what I really think?" "Please." Naomi turned to face him fully. "I think you dodged a bullet. Rebecca doesn't love Preston any more than she loved you. She loves the idea of being loved, of being the center of attention. That's why this wedding is so elaborate. It's not about commitment. It's about performance." Julian stared at her, struck by how clearly she'd seen in one evening what he'd missed in 3 years. "You, on the other hand," Naomi continued, "you're genuine. Maybe too focused on work, maybe a little emotionally guarded, but that's not the same as being incapable of feeling. You're just careful about who you let in. And you figured all this out after 3 weeks? I'm a good observer. Comes with the waitressing territory." They stood in comfortable silence, the sounds of the party muted behind them. Julian realized something that both excited and terrified him. This wasn't pretend anymore. Somewhere between the diner and this moment, something real had taken root. The grand exit, they returned to the reception for the final hour, dancing together, laughing at the absurdity of the ice sculptures, and gradually saying their goodbyes. As they prepared to leave, Rebecca intercepted them one last time, Leaving so soon? She asked, champagne clearly loosening her tongue. It's been a long evening, Julian replied diplomatically. Rebecca looked at Naomi with something like envy. You know what's funny? I spent 3 years trying to make Julian into something he wasn't. Someone more social, more attentive, more romantic. I thought the problem was him, Rebecca Preston called from across the room, his tone sharp. She ignored him, but watching him tonight, the way he looks at you, the way he smiles, I realized the problem was that he just wasn't those things with me. He was never going to be, no matter how hard I pushed. I hope you find happiness, Naomi said gently. Real happiness, not just the appearance of it. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears before. She blinked them away and walked back to her new husband without another word. In the car ride home, Naomi kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. Well, that was something. That's one way to put it. Julian glanced at her. Thank you. For everything. You were amazing tonight. The deal was one night, right? Consider it fulfilled. Something in Julian's chest tightened. Right, the deal. They drove in silence for a while before Naomi spoke again. Although, if you wanted to grab coffee sometime, actual coffee, not performance coffee, I'd be open to that. Julian felt himself smile. I'd like that very much. As he pulled up to her apartment building, the night felt unfinished. Naomi gathered her things, but hesitated before opening the door. Julian, whatever happens next, thank you for giving me and Danny a chance at a better life. That matters more than you know, Naomi. Wait, caught her hand. This wasn't what I expected. You weren't what I expected. Good unexpected or bad unexpected. The best kind? She smiled, squeezed his hand, and stepped out of the car. Julian watched her walk to her door, and only when she disappeared inside did he realize that everything had changed. What started as a transaction had become something neither of them had planned for. Something real. The morning after Naomi woke to sunlight, streaming through her apartment window and a text, message on her phone, coffee at Ruby's. My treat this time. Jay. She smiled despite herself, then immediately felt ridiculous for smiling. Last night was business, she reminded herself. A deal completed, but as she showered and dressed, she couldn't shake the memory of Julian's expression on the terrace. The way he'd held her hand in the car. You're overthinking this, she told her reflection, at the hospital. Her brother Danny was recovering well from his surgery. When she arrived, he was sitting up in bed, color returning to his cheeks. Hey, superhero, she said, kissing his forehead. Naomi, the doctor said everything went perfectly. I can go home in 2 days. His eyes shone with tears. I can't believe this is real. Believe it, kiddo. So when do I meet the mysterious benefactor? Mom said some rich guy paid for everything? Naomi hesitated. It's complicated. Is he your boyfriend? Because Mom seems to think he is. Danny, focus on getting better. We'll sort out the rest later. But sorting out the rest was exactly what terrified her. Because somewhere between pretending and reality, her feelings had become genuine. Coffee and confessions. Julian was already at Ruby's when she arrived. Sitting in the same booth where they'd first met, he dressed down, jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit, and somehow looked more approachable this way. He came, he said. Standing as she approached. I live for free coffee, she replied. Sliding into the booth, her coworker Amy brought over 2 cups without being asked. Look at you two, all official now. About time, Naomi. When Amy walked away, Naomi shook her head. Everyone at work thinks we're together. I haven't corrected them. Do you want to? Correct them, I mean. Naomi met his eyes. I don't know what I want. Last night felt real, but it wasn't. It was a performance we both agreed to. What if it stopped being a performance somewhere along the way? Her heart hammered. Julian, we live in completely different worlds. You have penthouses and business meetings in Dubai. I have a 1-bedroom apartment and night shifts at a diner. So, my mother cleaned houses. I grew up in a neighborhood not much better than this one. Money doesn't change who you are fundamentally. Maybe not. But it changes everything around you. Your friends, your expectations, your entire life. Julian reached across the table, taking her hand. I spent 3 years with someone from my world. Someone who understood the lifestyle, the social obligations, all of it. And I was miserable. Then I spent one evening with you, and I remembered what it feels like to actually connect with another person. One evening isn't a relationship, and let's make it more than one evening. Let's see what happens when we stop pretending and start being real. Naomi wanted to say yes. Every part of her wanted to lean into the possibility, but fear held her back. I need time to think, Julian nodded, disappointment flickering across his face. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Worlds colliding. 2 weeks passed. Julian texted occasionally, casual messages checking on Danny's recovery, sharing funny observations, never pushing. Naomi found herself looking forward to those messages, smiling at her phone like a teenager. Danny came home from the hospital, and Naomi threw a small celebration dinner at their apartment. Their mother Carmen fussed over the meal, happy to see her son healthy and strong again. "You should invite Julian," Carmen said, while chopping vegetables. "Mom, it's family dinner. He saved Danny's life. That makes him family in my book." Against her better judgment, Naomi sent the text. Julian arrived an hour later with flowers for Carmen and a new video game system for Danny, who immediately declared him the coolest person ever, watching Julian sit on their worn couch. Laughing at Danny's terrible jokes and complimenting Carmen's cooking, Naomi felt something shift inside her. He fit here. Not because he was trying to, but because he genuinely enjoyed it. "Your mom's amazing," Julian said later, as they did dishes together. "Danny's a great kid too. They're my whole world. Can I see that? It's beautiful, actually. The way you all take care of each other." Naomi dried a plate, choosing her words carefully. "Julian, if we did this, if we tried being together for real, you need to understand something. My family comes first. Always. I can't be the woman who's available for last minute. Trips to Paris or charity galas every weekend. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are. And what about your world? Those people at the wedding, they looked at me like I was a novelty. Entertainment. How long before that gets old for you?" Julian set down the dish he was washing and turned to face her fully. "Naomi, those people don't matter. They're business associates, not friends, not family. If being with you means I see less of them, I consider that a bonus. You say that now, I mean it now, and I'll mean it tomorrow, next month, next year." The test 3 days later, Julian invited Naomi to a business dinner. "It's important clients from Singapore. I know it's not your scene, but I'd really like you there," Naomi agreed, despite her reservations. She borrowed a dress from a friend, did her own makeup, and met Julian at the restaurant. An exclusive establishment where the menu didn't list prices. The evening started well enough. The clients, an older couple named Mr. and Mrs. Tan, were polite and engaging. But halfway through dinner, a woman named Veronica Ashford appeared at their table. "Julian, darling," she purred, ignoring Naomi completely. "I heard about Rebecca's wedding. Such a disaster, wasn't it? You must be relieved you escaped that mess, Veronica. This is Naomi Brooks, my girlfriend." Naomi Veronica is an investment banker. Veronica's eyes swept over Naomi dismissively. "How sweet. And what do you do, Naomi?" "I'm a waitress." The silence that followed was deafening. Veronica's laugh was sharp. "Oh, you're serious. How refreshingly bohemian of you, Julian. Is this a phase? Or are we meant to take it seriously?" Julian's jaw tightened. "Veronica, that's incredibly rude. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. This girl is clearly out of her depth." Naomi felt heat rise in her cheeks, but before Julian could respond, Mr. Tan spoke up. "My wife was a school teacher when we met. I was already successful in business. People said the same things about her." He smiled at his wife warmly. 42 years later, she's still the smartest decision I ever made." Mrs. Tan nodded. "Status means nothing. Character means everything." Veronica flushed and excused herself quickly. The rest of the dinner passed pleasantly, but Naomi couldn't shake the encounter. In the car afterward, she was quiet. "I'm sorry about Veronica," Julian said. "She's always been horrible. She's not wrong, though, is she? I am out of my depth in your world. Stop. You held yourself with more grace tonight than Veronica has in her entire life. But this is what it's going to be like, isn't it? Every dinner, every event, people wondering what you're doing with someone like me. Julian pulled the car over, turning to face her. Naomi, I don't care what they think. I care what you think. What we build together. I care, Julian. I care that your business associates think I'm a joke. I care that I don't know which fork to use or how to make small talk about stock portfolios. Then we'll deal with it together. Or we'll skip those events entirely. But please don't let people like Veronica make you doubt what we have. Naomi closed her eyes. I need time. This is all moving so fast, and I'm scared of what? Of getting hurt. Of losing myself. Of waking up one day and realizing I'm just playing a part in your life. Julian took her hands. You could never be just a part. You're the whole story, Naomi. Everything else is background noise. Rebecca's return the following week. Rebecca showed up at Ruby's diner. Naomi was wiping down tables when she walked in, looking far less polished than at her wedding. No makeup, hair in a ponytail, designer sweatsuit replacing the couture. Can we talk? Rebecca asked. Naomi gestured to a booth. Coffee. Please. They sat in awkward silence until Naomi returned with 2 cups. Why are you here? Naomi asked directly. Rebecca laughed bitterly. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe because you're the only person who will understand what I'm about to say? Try me. I made a mistake. Marrying Preston, I mean. We've been married 3 weeks and I already feel suffocated. He's controlling, demanding, nothing like how he acted when we were having our affair. And you want sympathy? No, I want to warn you. Rebecca looked up, eyes red. Julian is a good man, better than I deserved. I pushed him away because I was always looking for something more exciting, more dramatic. I thought Preston was that. But exciting fades. Drama becomes exhausting. And then you're left with who someone really is underneath. She paused. Julian's foundation is solid. Preston's is hollow. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw how he looked at you at my wedding. Like you were the only real thing in the room. He never looked at me that way. And I want you to know that if you walk away from him because you're scared or because people judge you, you'll regret it. I know I do. After Rebecca left, Naomi sat alone in the booth for a long time thinking. The choice that night, Naomi called Julian. Can you come over? I think we need to talk. He arrived within 30 minutes, anxiety clear on his face. They sat on her small couch, the space between them feeling vast. Rebecca came to see me today, Naomi began. Julian's expression darkened. What did she want? To tell me not to make her mistakes? To tell me that you're worth it? Naomi, whatever she said, let me finish. She was right about some things. You are a good man. You did something incredibly generous for my family, and you've been nothing but respectful and patient with me. She took a breath. But I'm terrified, Julian. Terrified of losing myself in your world. Terrified of always being the waitress in everyone's story. Terrified that one day you'll wake up and realize you want someone who fits better. Julian moved closer, taking her hands. And I'm terrified too. Terrified that my work will consume me again. Terrified I'll let you down. Terrified I'll never be enough after watching my last relationship fall apart. But here's what I know. I'd rather be terrified with you than comfortable with anyone else. Tears slipped down Naomi's cheeks. What if we fail? What if we don't? She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not a millionaire or a business mogul, but just a man who wanted to be seen and understood. The same thing she wanted. Okay, she whispered. Okay, let's try. Really try. No pretending, no deals. Just us figuring it out as we go. Julian pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. That's all I've wanted since the moment you challenged me in this diner. They sat together in her modest apartment, the sounds of the city filtering in through thin walls, and for the first time, both felt completely at home. 6 months later, the community center opened on a warm spring day. Julian had insisted on funding it as an investment, not a gift, making Naomi part owner and director. Children from the neighborhood poured in, excited about the after-school programs. The library, the art room, Danny, fully recovered and thriving, helped run the technology lab. Carmen volunteered in the kitchen, teaching cooking classes. And Julian showed up every week to mentor kids interested in business. His expensive suits traded for jeans and teaching patience. "You know what's funny?" Naomi said as they watched kids paint a mural on the center's wall. "What? If Rebecca hadn't invited you to that wedding, none of this would exist. The center, us, any of it." Julian pulled her close. "Maybe we should send her a thank you card." "Too soon," Naomi laughed. "Speaking of which, I got a message from her yesterday. She's getting divorced already. Apparently Preston was worse than she imagined. She asked if we knew any good lawyers." Naomi shook her head. "Do you feel bad for her?" "A little. But mostly I feel grateful. She set me free to find something real." Naomi looked up at him. "This is real, isn't it? Even after everything, even with all the challenges, especially because of the challenges. We chose each other, Naomi. Not because it was easy or convenient or what anyone expected, but because when I'm with you, I'm the person I actually want to be." "Sappy," she teased. But her eyes were bright with tears. True, though. As the sun set over the community center, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Julian and Naomi stood together watching the children play, knowing that their story had started with pretense, but had become the most authentic thing in both their lives. Sometimes the best love stories begin with an unexpected invitation and a desperate deal, but they become real when two people choose honesty over appearances, connection over convention, and each other over everyone else's expectations. The waitress and the millionaire had found something neither knew they were looking for. A partnership built not on what they could get from each other, but on who they could become together. And that was worth more than any wedding invitation. Any business deal or any amount of money, it was simply worth everything.